She was an exotic dancer in Paris at the height of the Belle époque. She was the object of sexual desire for wealthy men, ambassadors, and high-ranking officers. She was Mata Hari, the dancer, the spy, one of the great names of World War I espionage. Novels, movies, even video games, and a young Indiana Jones episode have channeled a character that is now the stuff of legends. A shrewd, manipulative femme fatale spying and double-crossing on both Germany and the Allies at the height of World War I, motivated only by greed and the need to maintain an extravagant lifestyle. She was Margaretha von Zelle, also known as Mata Hari, also known as Agent H-21 of the German Secret Service. She was accused of causing the death of 50,000 French soldiers and met her deserved fate in front of a firing squad on a cold October morning in 1917. But before you pronounce your verdict, stop and think. In a world of spies, nothing is as it seems. The commonly accepted narrative of Mata Hari may indeed just be a fabrication. Was she really the ruthless double agent the French counter-espionage wanted you to believe, or was she simply a pawn on the European chessboard, lost in a game that she could barely understand? Documents recently declassified by the French Secret Services reveal a whole new truth, which, well, we're about to tell. Mata Hari was born Margaretha Gertruida Zelle on the 7th of August 1876. She was born in the town of Leeuwarden to a relatively well-off family. Her first years of life, they were largely uneventful until the day when, aged 13, her beloved father Adam abandoned her and her mother to live with another woman. 2 years later, her mother Antje died. With no other sustenance, Margaretha was sent away by relatives to study to become a teacher. Margaretha was now 15 and had bloomed. With her dark complexion and exotic looks, she stood out like an orchid among dandelions. That was according to a schoolmate. This friend was not the only one to notice. Age 16, Margaretha was expelled from school for having an affair with the headmaster. 2 years later, she was living in The Hague, bored, miserable, and yearning for an adventure away from the Netherlands. She found a way out through a Lonely Hearts advert posted by a Dutch colonial officer of Scottish descent, Captain Rudolf McLeod, who was 22 years her senior. They married in July of 1895. If Margaretha wanted adventure in life, McLeod would offer it. He was posted to the Dutch colonies in Indonesia, and things, well, they didn't really get much more exotic than that. Their married life in Indonesia, though, it was not a happy one. McLeod was a serious adulterer and physically abusive. She resorted to having numerous affairs with young officers posted in the colony. But the worst thing was that Rudolf had contracted syphilis by one of his mistresses, infecting Margaretha, and by hereditary transmission, their 2 children, Norman John and Louise Jean, who had been born in 1896 and 1898. Norman's case, it was severe, and he received the only available treatment at the time. That was mercury. The local doctor overdosed the child, who sadly died from mercury poisoning, aged only 2. This was the final blow for the McLeod's marriage. They separated, and after returning to the Netherlands in 1902, they formally got divorced. A divorced woman like Margaretha in the early 20th century would have been at a tremendous disadvantage, but she did not surrender. In her colonial days, she had picked up more than just an STD from that gentleman McLeod. She could also speak fluent German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Malay. Most of all, she could dance. She had learned some local Malay and Indonesian dances unknown to European audiences of the early 1900s, and this is where her career truly started. Imagine the setting. It's Paris during the Belle époque, a period that lasted from 1871 to 1914, in which French economy, culture, and the arts were flourishing. The scene, the Guimet Museum of Asian Art. Enter an unknown dancer who is going to stun high society of Paris with her bold moves inspired by the mysterious rituals of the Far East. Her name used to be Margaretha McLeod, but now it's just Mata Hari, the Eye of the Dawn in the Malay language. It was the start of a stellar career that would take her from private parties to the most celebrated theatres in Europe. In fact, Mata Hari's shows would have been completely banned in any other context, even by the loose standards of the Belle Époque. She would perform with loose and transparent robes, very often stripping almost completely naked, and yet she always got away by stating that she was simply reenacting the sacred dances of the priestesses of some cult or another that was in Indonesia. During the following year, her celebrity grew not only because of her performances, but mainly because of the affairs and the gossip that surrounded her. Her patrons included journalists, lawyers, government officials, army officers, the top echelon of Paris society. And they repaid her favors in lavish gifts, clothes, jewels, or just plain cash. Now it's time that we dispel a myth that's always surrounded Mata Hari, the fact that she was little more than a prostitute and had an appetite for sex with powerful men. In a series of letters to her cousin Edward published in 2017, Mata Hari confesses how she had developed a loathing for sex after her unfortunate relationship with McLeod. If sometimes she consented to a relationship with a powerful friend, it was only so that she could provide for her beloved daughter Louise. It was a fact, nonetheless, that her dancing had made her famous, but it was her wealthy acquaintances that had made her rich. These acquaintances became ever more important with time. As the Belle époque gradually slid into the warning signs of the war to end all wars, demand for her shows had started to wane. In June of 1914, she had received an offer to dance in Berlin. It was too good an opportunity to miss. Unfortunately, the show was cancelled due to a small mishap: Germany's declaration of war against Russia on the 1st of August. This meant it was time for Mata Hari to go back to Paris. Alas, though, another small thing prevented her from doing so, and that was Germany's declaration of war against France on the 3rd of August. Yep, World War I. It had begun. Mata Hari decided then to return to her real home, The Hague. She could have settled there and enjoyed a quiet life in one of the few remaining neutral powers of Europe. She could have done that, but she didn't. It was in the autumn of 1915 that Mata Hari started dating one Karl Kroemer, apparently the honorary consul of Germany in Amsterdam, but actually an agent for the Kaiser's Secret Service. Kroemer had a plan. He would recruit this beautiful woman who carried a neutral passport and spoke several languages to seduce top brass in the Allied field and report back any secrets she could gather. Her reward? 20,000 francs. This is when accounts start to differ. According to the official inquiry that would follow, this is when Mata Hari officially became Agent H21 and started her campaign to harm the Allied war effort for the sole reason of earning more and more cash to fund a lavish lifestyle. Feel free to believe the legends, but the declassified documents, they suggest a rather different story. Mata Hari declined the offer, but she kept the 20,000 francs. In her eyes, this was rightful compensation for having her furs and jewels seized by German border guards at the outbreak of the war. Having regained some funds and some confidence, Mata Hari returned to her spiritual home of Paris. Sailing to France from the Netherlands in December of that year, her ship was docked in the English port of Folkestone, and all passengers they were questioned by a British intelligence officer. The officer noted of Mata Hari, she speaks French, English, Italian, Dutch, and probably German. Handsome, bold type of woman, well and fashionably dressed. And the final verdict? Not above suspicion, and she should be refused permission to return to the UK. This overzealous officer even sent a message about Mata Hari to the French 12e Bureau, or Second Office, which was the counter-espionage unit of the Ministry of War, headed by Captain Georges Ladoux. It was January of 1916 now. Mata Hari was back in Paris and had resumed her old habits, hanging out with dashing officers and powerful undersecretaries. But something had changed. She was being followed. Ladoux's agents, they shadowed her every move, opened her mail, and intercepted her phone calls. I'm going to present again both versions of this story, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. According to the official inquiry, the counter-espionage unit was gathering intelligence on Mata Hari's spying for the Germans. But the facts are that the evidence they collected amounted to nothing. That same year, Mata Hari met Vladimir de Massloff, probably her first love and certainly the greatest of her life. De Massloff was a decorated Russian captain who had been partially blinded in one eye while fighting on the Western Front. When Vladimir proposed, Mata Hari accepted happily. But he had to leave for the front again. And how could she stay close to him? Despite her passport from a neutral country, Mata Hari needed a special safe conduct to travel near the front lines. And this is where Jean Halle, an ex-lover, enters the picture. Jean apparently worked for the War Department, but unofficially he was reporting to Captain Ladoux. Jean arranged for an appointment for Mata Hari to meet the 12e Bureau, and the captain placed his offer on the table. The exotic dancer would become a spy for them, seducing high-ranking German targets in neutral countries to capture military secrets. In exchange, Captain Ladoux would give her the safe conduct she needed, and also 1 million francs. By the way, that's more than $3 million American in today's money. This would have have been more than enough to support Massloff and herself after they married, especially if he did not recover his sight or his aristocratic family disowned him. Ladoux instructed Mata Hari to wait for instructions before going back to The Hague via Spain. These were instructions, though, that never came. She did not know what intelligence she was meant to gather, whom to target, nor how to communicate in secret. Tired of waiting, she eventually wrote him by regular post, asking at least for an advance. If she was going to seduce an important man, she needed to buy some new clothes. Finally, en route for Spain, Mata Hari's ship was yet again stopped at a British port, and she was questioned once more. This time, the British transferred her to London and kept her under custody until November of 1916. So what was going on? Well, it seems that the British Secret Service, MI5, were trying to establish if she was indeed Margaretha Zelle, aka Mata Hari, or one Clara Benedix, an actual German secret agent. This was a sticky situation which Mata Hari tried to resolve by admitting to being a French agent. The British contacted Ladoux, and his reply was, "Understand nothing. Send Mata Hari back to Spain." So, what was his game? Well, according to the author Pat Shipman, MI5's interpretation was that Ladoux suspected her for some time of being a German agent and had only pretended to employ her. He would have been only too happy to have the Brits get rid of her. But also, on this occasion, they let her go. In December of 1916, Mata Hari set to work in Madrid. Without instructions, but determined to win her reward, she seduced a German diplomat, Major Arnold von Kalle. They spent only 3 afternoons in bed, but it was enough. He let it slip that the German Navy, with their Ottoman allies, were planning a submarine landing in Morocco, which was then a French colony. The Germans planning to open a new front in North Africa? Well, this was huge news. Mata Hari sent a message to Ladoux to inform him, and his response? So why did Ladoux not respond to her? Did he not trust her or the intelligence that she'd captured? Well, Mata Hari, she sought advice from another lover, this time a French officer, Colonel Joseph Denvignes. Denvignes asked her to extract more information about the Moroccan landing from Karl, which she did. It was a bad move. Karl and the Germans now became suspicious and decided to act. American journalist Russell Warren Howe in 1985 claimed to have access to the Mata Hari dossier, which had been kept secret by the Dossier Bureau since 1917. According to him, what the German Secret Service did was incredibly sneaky. Suspecting that Mata Hari was a French spy and still resentful that she had extorted 20,000 francs from Kroemer in 1915, Karl and his cronies sent a secret radio message to Berlin to get rid of her. This message implicated that Mata Hari was actually a German double agent. But the evil genius part was that they used a code which they knew the French had already cracked. The message was intercepted by a listening post located on top of the Eiffel Tower. I mean, it is a big aerial after all. And this was promptly relayed to Ladoux, who now had the evidence that he needed to arrest Mata Hari. So the German agents, they had manipulated Ladoux into doing their own dirty work. But Ladoux was only too happy to have been manipulated. He had suspected her from the start, and the French public opinion was always on the hunt for scapegoats after the disastrous battles of the Somme and Verdun. In January of 1917, Mata Hari returned to Paris and demanded to meet Ladoux to claim her reward. But he simply shunned her, and she was running out of money and running out of hope. Then, on the 19th of February, the Dossier Bureau issued an arrest warrant against her. The charges were espionage on behalf of Germany. Mata Hari was taken to Saint-Lazare, Paris's harshest women's prison. She, who had once been at home in some of the most luxurious hotels of Europe, now had to survive in a flea-ridden and overcrowded jail. For 3 months, she was interrogated by investigative magistrate Pierre Bouchardon, an unforgiving man with a prejudice against so-called loose women like Mata Hari. During this time, Ladoux kept her completely isolated, especially from her lawyer Clunet, another ex-lover, and from her fiancé Vladimir de Massloff. Finally, on the 24th of July, Mata Hari went on trial. Once one of the most beautiful women in Europe, she appeared ill, bloated, and tired. But she was not defeated. Clunet was not experienced in military trials, but he did a fair job. He pointed out that the only evidence against her was the message intercepted at the Eiffel Tower, which may have been doctored by Ladoux himself. He produced a star witness, the secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who testified for Mata Hari's good character and her loyalty. Mata Hari gave a great performance, proclaiming to the jury that, "A courtesan, I admit it. A spy, never." But it was all a show trial from the very start. A few weeks earlier, the 20th of April, the disastrous Nivelle offensive had ground to a halt. 40,000 French soldiers had died on a single day, the 16th of April. As a consequence, 68 divisions had mutinied in June, refusing to continue fighting and dying for France. The general public, they needed a scapegoat for these failures, and what better could that be than a spy? Even better, a foreign spy. Even better, a woman of loose morals. According to author Pat Shipman, the 7 jurors all believed the unfounded rumor that Mata Hari's spying had caused the death of 50,000 French soldiers. How could she possibly stand a chance against that? On the 27th of July, the judge pronounced the verdict of guilty of espionage and treason. The sentence was death, to be carried out by firing squad. On the morning of the 15th of October, Mata Hari was driven to the Vincennes castle on the outskirts of Paris. 6 months of incarceration had taken their toll on her legendary beauty. Even so, she decided to wear her finest clothes for the occasion. The firing squad officer offered to blindfold her, but she refused. Instead, she looked defiantly at her captors and her executors. Legend says that she blew a kiss to one of the soldiers of the firing squad and one to the priest there to offer her the last rites. Then the squad commander raised his saber. Journalist and eyewitness Harry Wales wrote, "She did not die how actors and moving picture stars would have us believe that people die when they are shot. She did not throw up her hands, nor did she plunge straight forward or straight back. Instead, she seemed to collapse. Slowly, inertly, she settled to her knees, her head up always, and without the slightest change of expression on her face. She lay prone, motionless, with her face turned towards the sky." A non-commissioned officer drew his revolver. Bending over, he placed the revolver almost, but not quite, against the left temple of the spy. He pulled the trigger, and the bullet tore into the brain of the woman. She had tied Europe's richest and most powerful men to her little finger. She had Europe's audiences at her feet. But when the Belle époque ended, and the war to end all wars had broken out, Mata Hari had failed to stay afloat. She had been condemned by her naivety rather than her cunning, and had been framed by petty and vengeful men. Yet she faced her last weeks on Earth with a great dignity, giving her best ever performance on that cold October morning. The sergeant major supervising the firing squad remarked at the time, "By God, this lady knows how to die." So thank you for watching today's video, and let us know your verdict in the comments. Do you think Mata Hari was a legendary spy, or maybe just a martyr of a great game that she couldn't control? If you want to know more about World War I, check out our video about Kaiser Wilhelm right here. Also, as always, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to make sure you don't miss out on any of our videos. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.